If you've come to check out this video, you're probably thinking about going into public accounting or just want to learn more about the type of hours public accountants work. There are several factors that I can share with you in my 6 years of experience that are going to determine how many hours a week you'll actually have to work on average throughout the course of the year. By the end of this video, I think you guys are going to have a much better understanding of the type of hours you'll have to put in if you work as an accountant. I highly recommend watching this whole video because at the end of it, I'm going to show you a spreadsheet that breaks down the average hours per week for each month of the year that you can expect to work in public accounting. What's up, guys? It's Mike, also known as MK the CPA. Welcome to Money in Life TV, the channel that you come to every single week to improve your financial position, your career, and your life. If you guys have not already seen my video on how much money do CPAs make sure to check it out. I'll link it up right above, and also I'll put links to that video in the description down below. In that video, I asked, hey, if you want to see more videos like this and want to learn more about public accounting, I said just hit that like button. And you guys did. You guys really voted that you wanted to see more videos like this. And so that's one of the reasons I'm producing this video. I remember starting off in public accounting, or when I was first thinking about becoming an accountant, first thing I thought about was, hey, what kind of money do they make? But the second thing I thought about was, what kind of hours do they work? And that's what this video is going to cover. Now, I can only share from my personal experience. When I did some research online just to see what other kind of information is out there, you get answers that are kind of all over the place. So I really think it comes down to a few key factors, which we're going to talk about right now, that are going to really be the determining factors of how many hours you can expect to put in every week throughout the year as a public accountant. In all my years of experience, I think the most important thing that's going to determine how many hours a week you can expect to put in is actually where you work. I know that was a very common factor in determining your salary, but this is also true in determining the number of hours you work. So the size of the firm is really going to matter, depending on what firm you're looking at joining. I've seen both ends of the spectrum. There's the very, very small firm where there's 10 or less people, and you have the role of doing everything. You're answering the phones, you're preparing tax returns, you're doing audits. That can be an environment where it can be very, very busy because there's very few people to do the work. Then I've seen the other end of the spectrum where we look at Big Four firms like KPMG, PwC. Over the years of working in accounting, I've met several people who've worked at Big Four firms, and to this day, I still have yet to meet a person who has come from a Big Four environment who said they have not worked a lot of hours. What I've heard is common is 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, even up to 80 hours a week at a Big Four firm. Damn! I find that the sweet spot is if you join a firm within around 50 to 100 people. Firms that seem to have 50 to 100 people, there's different people taking care of different functions of the firm, so you can be a little bit more specialized but not have to do every part of the accounting process. For example, you might not have to do auditing and taxes. Maybe you can just focus on taxes, and that's what I focus at in my firm. I just focus on taxes. We have other teams, other departments who focus on audits. We have a separate department that does all the bookkeeping. So firms like that kind of have a team approach, what I found, and that's what has allowed for some flexibility at my job. I'm not going to talk a lot about work-life balance because I want to save that for another video. I think the number of hours and work-life balance, it's related, but they're really two different things, and I'll explain why in a future video. All right, so the culture of the firm, obviously the size of the firm, I think those are the most important things initially. I think the second most important factor that's going to determine what kind of hours you work is the type of work that you do. Obviously, if you work tax, you're going to work a lot of hours during tax season. If you work audit, you might have different busy times. Other things to consider is if you're an expert in a particular niche, let's say like estates and trusts or nonprofit, usually those are very niche oriented. and there's very few people who do the work in those areas. So if you get involved in niches, you might find yourself working more hours than some of the other team members. For example, let's say you do estates and trust. You'll have estates and trust tax returns to do, right? You'll have gift tax returns. You're gonna have maybe some 706s to prepare and some other stuff. You might have to do that work on top of doing the individual returns, the business returns, etc. So your schedule might be a little busier because you're in a niche. So those are some things to consider in regards to the type of work that you do. You're probably gonna be busy at different times throughout the year. You're probably wondering, hey, what's the busiest week, or what's the most hours you've ever put in a single week? And I'm happy to answer that. The most hours I've ever put in a single week was 72 hours. Now I know people, like I said, in the big four firms, they're putting in 80. I know somebody who's put in 90 hours a week or more. So there's people that do that. I do not recommend it. But generally, I do not work 72 hours a week. That's only happened in the 6 years I've been doing public accounting. I've only worked that many hours in a week like once or twice in 6 years. I try to maintain my schedule pretty well so I don't have to put in that number of hours, because that's pretty intense.
Let's do it! Rock that world! Rock that world!
Now, because public accounting and accounting in general is so company specific, the best advice I can give you is if you're thinking about working somewhere. So let's say there's a firm in town where you know you're thinking of working, but you're obviously not gonna know those hours until you're in this environment. So what I could recommend you do is, if you know somebody at that company, take them to lunch, get to know them, and just ask them some questions. If you can job shadow them, see if they'll let you do that. Or, if you can just see what their job is like, chances are they're gonna be pretty open and honest with you. Because like I said, this type of work is very company specific, and based on the company you work at and the type of work you do are the two main factors that are gonna determine the hours you work per week. If you know you want a flexible schedule, I would really negotiate that going in. Find out if the company even has a flexible work hours. Many of them don't. I've worked at 3 public accounting firms and only one of them have had flexible work hours. So don't assume that even though we have technology that allows us to work from home and all these other things, don't assume that every firm is going to be flexible on the hours. But like I said, I would take somebody out to lunch and get to know them, ask them about the company, or I would negotiate up front that flexible schedule if you can, if that's really important to you. And I would ask as many questions as you can about the company before you actually start. Okay guys, I am back with you, and here's the spreadsheet. I love to give you, well, first of all, I just love spreadsheets because I'm a freaking accountant, but here it is, guys. I wanted to give you a visual representation, an organized visual representation of the expected hours you might work when you join a public accounting firm. I especially wanted to make this because I remember, way back when I started public accounting, these are the type of questions that are difficult to ask, and it's kind of like you get like that bad vibes, right? Or bad voodoo if you ask questions like this, right? Like if you ask about, hey, how much do you make? Or, hey, what kind of hours you work? It's like not professional to ask such questions. But here on YouTube, I can cover that. I can talk about things like that. Now, obviously, this is just from my own research, all of this information, and from my own experience. Each accountant you talk to is probably gonna have some overlap with the experience I've had, but they also might have a whole different set of hours they work, especially if they work Big Four or at a smaller firm. So it really depends on who you ask. But I just want to share my experience with you guys. So the way I've broke this out is I've broken this information out by month. So throughout the year, you can kind of see when there's busy times and when there's not so busy times. And like I said, that really comes back to what you do at the firm. But then I've covered like what busy season it is. And then over here, I think these are the industry averages based on my knowledge of the industry and the research I've done. And then I've kind of broken out my averages over here. Now, I'll let you guys pause the video if you really want to look at this spreadsheet closely, but let me just point out a few things. So you'll notice that tax season, depending on the type of clients you have, now that's one thing I forgot to mention, the type of clients you have will also determine how busy you are, because some clients are more involved than others. That's part of the hours mix, if you ask me. But in January, that's when tax season starts, right? So usually it's the third week of January is when tax season really begins to pick up. So the third week of January or the end of January is when things really start to ramp up, and you go from 40 hours a week to 50 hours a week or more. That's when I found that starts from my experience. Like I said though, it just depends on your workload and your client mix. Now I have clients who have a November year end, and so come January I'm already working on their tax return. So I'm already busy, super busy. The day after New Year's, I am full-fledged into this thing and I'm working my butt off. By the time I finish that client group, then I'm already into the rest of the stuff, and I'm busy all the way through April 15th. I think industry averages, depending on the hours you negotiate up front and what you can expect, is going to be anywhere from 40 to 70 hours a week. I honestly think for most people, you're only going to be working maybe 40 to 50 in January, but towards the end of January, you're probably working about 55 to 60 hours a week. Same is true for February. You're probably looking at 55 to up to even 70 hours a week, with like 55 being the average. Just consider 55 to be the average work week, 50 to 55 hours, or maybe even 50 to 60 hours a week, I would expect for most firms. Now, Big Four, you're probably, I'm guessing, the average would be more like 60 to 80 hours a week in a Big Four firm. But I don't know. I've never worked at a Big Four firm. Now, obviously, so in March, you have the business tax return deadline. So it can be super freaking busy around March 15th. One of my years where I worked 70 hours was around the business deadline around March 15th. I've only done it one year or once or twice in my life, but near a major deadline, that's when the hours really ramp up. Then in April, same thing. It can be really crazy busy, possibly the most busiest, the first or second week of April, when you're trying to get everybody's individual return done. So obviously you guys can look at the hour ranges here and kind of determine for yourself. So my averages, so in January, I probably, starting off in January, I'm probably working like 40 to 50 hours a week. Usually about 45 the first week or two. It just depends really of when the information comes in, but I would expect about 45 to 50 hours a week in January, and then towards the end of January, I'm back to 50 to 55. Now, most of the tax season I've worked, I work around 55 hours a week most of the time, and I range between 55 to 60 hours. I do not usually go much over 60, if at all. I usually stay between 55 and 60. And that's all the way through tax season, guys. Some weeks I'll work 61, 62, but usually that's the highest I get, except for those 2 times in my life where I work over 70 hours. In May, so now let's take a step outside of tax season. Most people aren't that busy first leaving tax season. There might be a lot of extension work left to do. There might be audits starting up or ramping up. It just depends. But there is, for me, since I do taxes, there's actually a non-profit or an exempt organization deadline on May 15th. So I still stay pretty busy. Not like tax season busy, but even outside of tax season, my hours go back down to around 40. So I probably range between 40 to 43 hours the rest of the year, or between 40 to 45. So as you can see in June, I think the averages for most companies outside of tax season in public accounting are probably 40 to 50, whereas mine range between usually 40 to 43 hours a week. That's what I typically put in, and that seems to work for me, and I'm still able to get my work done timely and turn it around quickly. Like I said, guys, I don't want to bore you. You can just look at these charts and the graphs. I will let you guys know that as you can see, I put a range, right? Because every company is going to be a little bit different, so it can vary. But most of the time I'm on the lower end of the range. I'm usually not on the high end of these ranges. So if you're looking at my averages, look more towards the lower end to the middle. So just figure most of the year outside of tax season, I'm working 40 to 45 hours a week. Now, in September, that's of course the business tax return extension deadline. It gets a little busy around there. You might work some overtime in that area to finish all those business returns. Same thing is true for October. On October 15th is the deadline for people's personal returns that were extended. But around that time, obviously, it can really ramp up again. And I might find myself working close to 50 hours a week, or the first couple weeks of October. But like I said, guys, most of the year outside of tax season, I'm working 40 to 43 hours a week. And that's what I'm happy with. That's my balance. If I work much more than that, that really cuts into my personal life, my health, being able to do this YouTube channel. So I work really hard to manage my hours the best I can so I can do other things outside of work and stuff like this, because I really love sharing information like this with you guys and being a part of that. So guys, feel free to just pause the video, check out the spreadsheet, and just remember the factors I mentioned. I will list the factors that we talked about earlier in the video in the comment section down below, and also include some timestamps so you can jump right to those points if you want to revisit it. Make sure to check out my video on accounting salaries, or how much money CPAs make. And if you want to see more videos like this, guys, just make sure to let me know in the comment section down below. And like I said, just hit that like button, because when you hit that like button, it's like, Mike, yes, more content like this, please. I'm really interested in this kind of stuff, and I want to learn more about it. All right, guys, if you liked the video, make sure you smash that like button if you liked it. Share this information with a friend, especially friends who are going into public accounting. If you guys have not already subscribed, highly consider subscribing, because I make new videos typically every single week that are going to help you learn personal finances, investing, taxes, and things that are going to help you not only in your career, but everyday life. All right, guys, thank you for being such a wonderful audience. I would love to hear from you in the comment section below. What's the most hours you've ever worked at an accounting firm or in a single week? It doesn't have to even be in accounting. What's the most hours you've ever worked in a single week? Leave it in the comment section down below. And like I said, guys, thank you so much for your love and support. You guys are a great audience. And thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Good luck to you in your search to become a public accountant. I hope you found this information helpful. If for some reason I did not answer your question, just feel free to drop me a question. I'm very happy to respond to any questions you may have. And I will see you guys in next week's video. Bye, guys. Peace.